time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by
PSE Archery, Yamaha Outboards, Better the Hunt, Easy Cut, Packer Max, Deer Camp Coffee, Buck Baits, JPO Game Calls, Limwalker Game Calls, Wild Seasoning, Total Peep, Sunrise Archery, Scent Lock, and Scent Blocker.
Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal Live, everybody. I'm host Mike Adams, sitting in a cabin tonight, the refurbished cabin, the new look cabin.
The mod look cabin.
Yeah, I like it. It's
you did a good job, man.
It's been coming a long time, and it's been in the making. It's just, it took us, well, we've been in the house now 6 months.
Yep.
Since we moved from the old cabin. And, we just kind of got everything up and running and want to make sure that we could get back on the air. And I had a free weekend, so I tore everything apart and redid it.
Right, you did. You got Sparky in the shot now over your shoulder.
Yeah. Got my coyote there, and
it looks good.
Got really all kinds of stuff in here. Got my my antique ice fishing rod up there, and a little bass on the wall. So
got the recurve in the corner.
There you go. So I'll tell you what, our guest is sitting waiting. He's like, "Come on, let's hurry up, let's get on with this." So he's been patiently waiting for us. So let's get started with the people who support us.
Absolutely. I tell you what, folks, it's hunting season here in Michigan and pretty much everywhere. So why not get over to buckbaits.com and save 20% off your order when you use the promo code UNJ20. Getting reports the bucks are on the move.
Oh, yeah? Really?
Yeah.
Good deal.
I know, right? Mm-hmm. So, also, never a bad time to think about Packer Max. I tell you what, if you don't want to get a Packer Max, help me out here, Packer Max.
For food plots?
For food plots. He has gift cards you can get, too.
Oh, there you go. It'd be a great Christmas gift.
Exactly. That's kind of why I said it.
That's right. And get your Packer Max ready for next spring planting season.
But if you do get a Packer Max, if you use the promo code UNJ25, you'll get $25 off your order at packermax.com. Mm-hmm. And if you're thinking about those game calls, we had Paul and Amy on the show. JPO Game Calls, UNJ10 gets you 10% off your order over there. And why not just use a little wild seasoning on your vegetables or anything that you might take this
I've been
fall.
Using it quite a bit here lately.
Get 10% off your order at UNJ2021 at wildseasoning.com. And last but not least, Deer Camp Coffee. If you want 10% off your order, use the promo code UNJ10. What are you drinking today?
I just got this opening day.
Okay, it's not a cold brew.
No, it's not a cold brew.
Are you switching over to the hot brews because it's getting cold out there?
I just ran out of cold brew. That's the problem.
Okay. Gotcha.
And don't forget, we have our own label with Deer Camp Coffee, our medium roast ground coffee. So make sure you ask for that as well.
And a reminder here in Michigan, the pheasant opener is tomorrow.
That's right, it is. 20th. The 20th, every October 20th.
Yeah, the guns are
They'll be ablazing.
Right?
So
I tell you what, we've been following them all year long. We've had Josh on. We've had Joe on just before the championships. But now, the championship happened last week. And now, we've got Brett King on to help us wrap up the fabulous week of watching Algae Bloom.
What's going on, Brett?
Good evening, gentlemen. How you doing?
We're doing fine. Yeah, it's been a little while since we had you on.
It's been a while since we had you on, and we're doubling back with all you guys. Like we talked in the pre-show. In December, we'll have Robert on to wrap up the season. But for you, it was a tough week. You went up against a really good friend, and, well, he was putting fish in the boat, and it's kind of wiped you out on Tuesday.
I ran into a brick wall named Okada. That man had an incredible season. Nobody can take that away from him. You know, the fact that he didn't take home a Angler of the Year title on the season he had. I think he made 5 out of 6 grade 8s, just missing one event. Absolutely speaks miles about the man that he is. I mean, I say it often. I say it to a lot of people that Joe Okada is definitely one of the most technical, most focused, most dialed in, ready to go fishermen I've ever been around. Nobody ever wants to draw that card that you have to fish against Joe Okada. And he proved it once again, you know, against me. So It was a bittersweet moment. Obviously, you want your buddies to go on. I put my head down on Tuesday and did everything I felt like I could to beat him, and it just didn't work out for me. So it was fun to watch him advance on and go all the way to the finals. Unfortunately, he fell a little short come Friday, but I got to take it all in, watch it all live on the water. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, you did. And you know what? You called him a brick wall, but I think he's actually known as the bad boy of head-to-head fishing. I never seen a guy get penalized and catch fish, or vice versa. It was kind of fun.
It's funny because they call him the nice guy and they call him the bad guy. And, there's nothing nice about Joe Okada when he's got a fishing rod in his hand and you have to compete against him.
Right.
I mean, he's coming at you. You better bring your A game. And if you don't, you're going home much like I did.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's get to the pre-fishing. You said it was about a 15-hour drive to get there, all the way to New York from where you're at in Wisconsin.
Yep, about 15 hours.
The pre-fishing, how did that go for you? Because have you ever fished this lake before?
No, never had been on that body of water. Did a lot of research prior to, talked to a few people before the shutdown period. Elected not to make a trip out there like most of the other competitors did. It was just too far to go and look at it ahead of the close period. So we chose not to go out there, thinking 3 days should be enough to put it together. I don't know that we missed a lot by not going there. It's been such an unusual weather year this year. You can't even put your finger on it. We should have been out there, bundled up in cold weather gear, and it was 52, I think, the coldest morning. And we had 68 to 72 degree water temperatures all through the practice and through the event. I mean, it just didn't happen. So those fish never set up like a fall pattern.
So that was kind of like, as we kind of watched the practice take hold and interviewing you guys all, and then as the week went on, it became like the bridge. I think it was the I-80 bridge.
I don't know if it's I-80, but
it was a bridge that seemed to be like the one side or the other. And when you started pre-fishing that, what was your? I know you probably watched all the maps and stuff, but what was your initial thinking? Were you thinking with the weather, you were looking at the weather, going, well, this isn't going to be October fishing. This is more like maybe an earlier in the summer fishing?
So it really kind of played out as the tale of two lakes once you hit that bridge. The southern half was shallower basin, more stained water. You saw the algae bloom that went on down there. A lot of weeds, a lot of shallow weeds, with just basically one deep basin, which is what Joe ended up fishing for the most part for those 4 days. The north half was the deep holes, the deep wintering holes where the fish should have been for the most part. And there was some there. I mean, you saw, Isaac Max, Corey Heiser, some of those guys up there. I was up there a little bit on Tuesday during my match, scouring those holes. But come a normal fall, that's where those fish go, is up into those holes. So, obviously a lot of us were focused on those deep jigging. Those holes were 60, 65 feet deep in some spots. And you either tickled the bottom, you tickled the edges. What I found pretty crazy about those holes is I would get up there like I did on Tuesday, and I would get those fish on my active target, and I couldn't catch up to them. I kept saying I can't catch them. It didn't mean I couldn't catch them, which obviously I couldn't catch them. I zeroed, but I couldn't catch up to them. I could get them 70 feet out in front of my boat, and I would be on 10 on my Ultrex, and I couldn't catch up to them. I could not get them within that 70 feet, and it was just too deep to throw at them and effectively get at them, get to them because it was such a deep swing. So you kind of picked up on the locals that would come into the rims of those holes, and they would just anchor up and they would sit there and just vertical jig. And we see that in other places too. They would just let the fish come to them and let it happen. And after you see that, like on your active target, you kind of start to understand why they do that stuff. So it was a big learning curve. It was a great area. I think it's a really good lake. I don't know that you want to be there before Labor Day because of the traffic. It was very heavy populated on the banks. I'm sure they get a lot of the city folk coming down there. and they get a lot of pleasure craft traffic before, the Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
But it was a cool place.
It's a very public lake then with a lot of activity that could be for anything from fishing to jet skiing to water skiing and tubing.
Yes. I mean, in a lot of areas of the lake, what was pretty unique is it's basically in a bowl and it's surrounded by hills. Where the hills were a little bit taller, there was actually 2 rows of lake homes around the entire lake. Because they could build up on the hill and still have full view, of the beautiful scenery. It was all trees and all that. But it was just a lot of people. I would love to have owned 10 acres of land on that lake that was undeveloped, because I don't think I would have to try to fish anymore or sell boats anymore for a living, because you'd be set.
Wow. And I heard some of that going on about the fishing techniques. I heard a lot of that. I think one was from you when you're doing your commentating days there, but they couldn't catch up to the fish, which I was listening like, wait a minute, what do you mean they can't catch up to the fish?
Yeah, I remember him saying that. I was watching live, and the way he was explaining it, you couldn't get the bait out far enough to get to him because it was so deep and it would pendulum. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was pulling myself over 2 miles an hour on 10 on the trolling motor, and I just keep those fish in front of me at 70 feet, and I could not get any closer to actually throw to them. It was kind of wild, and then you'd see muskies, which were pretty obvious on the size and the physical stature on your active target, what they were. Just a moving carpet on the bottom of perch, white perch, yellow perch, white bass, cruising around, and obviously that's what they're feeding on. It was a pretty cool place. The people were super friendly. You think New York and it's going to be a bunch of rude people, but we were kind of deep and rooted, in more of certain types of Amish communities, rural. The people were super friendly. They were happy to have us there. It was a pretty cool experience, to be quite honest.
That's awesome. You always like to hear good things about the surrounding area and people that they're inviting, And I know when y'all come up to Saginaw Bay next year, it's going to be very inviting up here in Michigan as well.
Yes, been there a few times throughout my years, and Saginaw Bay is always good. Looking forward to that one. We actually have a pretty solid schedule next year.
You're going to be twice in South Dakota.
We're going to be twice in South Dakota. Once is, in my opinion, way too early. You better pack your long underwear for that one. If you look back on some of those early PWTs, there was some 10-degree mornings those guys got launched out of there. And
might have to bring an ice shanty with you.
The 1st of April, when you're that close to the Black Hills,
wow,
all bets are off. I mean, that one could be interesting. Of course, if it's like this year when it just gets warm and stays warm, who knows? So,
right.
But we should catch a lot of fish. Pretty much everywhere we go. We thought that this year Mother Nature did not help us out. It was such an early, long summer. The water got so hot so quick and stayed there forever. That did not help us, but I'm pretty excited for next year. It's a great schedule. Looking forward to catching a lot of fish. Definitely got to get better at head-to-head myself. Cool format. It's a whole different ballgame when you get into that match play and you're one-on-one. That's quite honestly where I struggled this year. It is just getting on top of that format. I'm going to have to do a better job. These younger guys are so good with the live imaging and, the live sonar stuff. I will be doing a lot of practicing this fall, just, queuing up my game on that particular technology and what I'm looking at and how to utilize that to my advantage.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're close here to our first break, so let's go ahead. We'll step outside, take our first break. We come back, we'll continue the conversation. I know Danny's got a couple of things.
Got some video of Mr. Brett King, and then one quick question before we go to break.
Is that PG?
It is very PG.
Okay, perfect.
And now you've announced the tour, but you didn't announce the championship location. I didn't hear as to when that will be announced.
The last event next year, isn't it?
They are going to pick that event for us, and it will not be announced, from what I remember and have read, until our last event, our last qualifying event of the year. Then they will announce it where the championship location is.
Oh, really?
It's going to be a surprise.
Wow, that'll be a couple months scramble.
That's cool.
Yes.
Oh, that's
sure.
cool. Okay, so I didn't know I didn't hear the explanation of when that was going to happen. But well, I guess we're all going to tune into that last qualifier and watch you guys see what happens.
Watch us all get on the phone and start making phone calls trying to figure out lodging and all that. Yeah, that's what it'll be.
Right.
All right, I tell you what, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has reinvented the way you buy bows.
From now on, you can make the most educated decision possible.
By basing your bow choice specifically on your shooting needs and goals.
All you need to do is ask yourself, what kind of shooter am I? What do I want to achieve?
PSE will help find the right category for you.
So, what kind of shooter are you?
Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Second segment of the show. Sitting here talking with Brett King about the head-to-head PWS series this year and wrapping everything up with the championship there in New York. So
Right, exactly. You know, that was one of the things we talked about in the break. When you go and you're doing all these travels, and you went from Detroit, you went out to Nebraska, you were up in Minnesota, you were finally in New York. The reception of the people, how did it go from town to town?
Oh, it was actually incredible. If you followed Facebook at all, you saw my little community here of Diamond Bluff embracing things with watch parties. Like my neighbor's shed was full screen watching the events, cheering me on, Joe, Rob, all of us. They've been around us when we're here for tournaments. They saw us here for Pool 2 because we stayed here. Pool 2, for example, the last day of the tournament, Joe and I came into the landing. There was a gentleman there waiting to meet us.
Really?
He had traveled around to the different ramps to find us. His kid was a super fan of Joe's, which nobody can fault him for that. So we took pictures with him and all that and sent them to his son. I mean, it was really cool that people were actually watching and doing that. Mille Lacs, it seemed like most of the resorts around the lake had us streamed on their TVs while people were eating breakfast and, maybe enjoying an early cocktail, whatever they were doing. But we heard many stories of the resorts playing head to head. I couldn't tell you how many times this year I would have boats next to me, whether it was a practice day. It wouldn't be a practice day, but on the competition days, you could hear head to head playing on their device, whether it was their phone or whatever they were playing it on while we were fishing, and they were there live to watch it. One of the things from the year that really stands out to me is in Nebraska. I got eliminated after day 2 and Rob and Joe went on. So I went on to do some work and do some dealer travel and head up to South Dakota. I pulled into Vans, which was the campground we were staying at, right there on McConaughey. And I pulled up to pay my tab at the campground store, and I got out of the truck and I kind of parked off to the side and I walked up to the store, and they had a bench in front of the store, and there was 3 elderly gentlemen sitting on that bench doing their morning coffee gig, probably drinking deer camp I was. And as I walked up, now these are retirement age guys, to keep that in mind. They were all on their own phone, just staring at it. And this was probably 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And I walked up and I'm like, you guys aren't by chance watching fishing, are you? And they looked up from their phones and looked over and saw my truck and boat parked there. And they're like, oh man, you should have been out there. Yeah, they were riveted to their phones. And I just thought that was so cool that they embraced what we were doing there. And were just glued to their phones at their age, taking in everything we were doing. Open the camp store door and walk in, and they were playing it on their computers, and nobody's getting any work done, so to speak. And we ran into that all year, so it was really cool. The community is really engaged that we were there and we were bringing their community, to the world, so to speak, and they really embraced it.
That's awesome, and that goes, I know, like, for the championship, they were having a watch party at a specific place back in Wisconsin. They were playing it. You're right. It was 7:30, 8:30 in the morning. There, it was like, but people, the comments when you read stuff like that in the comments when you're watching the live show, it's awesome. And for you guys to experience that is just great. And it bodes well for what they're doing over there at Head to Head and what's going to happen even next year.
Well, thinking along those same lines, what I wonder, because to me it was so enjoyable to watch, and everybody that we've talked to has commented on the fact of the same thing about that head-to-head competition. You're glued to it, and you're seeing it out there on the circuit as well. Do you think maybe you might start to see this type of how do I say framework of fishing maybe start trickling over to other series?
It's possible. Obviously, there's a huge investment on the part of Head to Head. They've got 10 cameras on site, and they have a full production studio back in house. They have invested the money to try to move the needle on the walleye side. To be honest, I've been chairman of the board with the AIM Fishing organization for a long time, and to sit back and think about trying to do something of this nature, with what we've created on that side, it's a pretty daunting task. What these guys have done in such a short time to create the production studio, line it all up, and bring it to real life in the amount of time that they have done it, it's pretty impressive. Brian Keller, Andy Cleveland, Kyle Carpenter, Travis, all those guys have put in massive efforts this year to get this thing off the ground. I'm sure there's sleepless nights, the whole Fix Studio crew, what they've undertook and seemingly overcome. It's pretty impressive what has happened this year, and I'm really looking forward to what the next year's bring us.
I tell you what, they did some good stuff with their graphics and everything, and their green screens, everything they did to help produce and make a quality product come out, whether you're watching it live on Facebook or on the channel itself or over on YouTube. I tell you what, it pretty much went flawlessly the entire year, except for that one day. Facebook was kind of messing with them a little bit and kind of knocked down the feed, but
yeah, that was unfortunate.
It takes two sides though. It takes the production side, but it also takes you guys. And I tell you what, everybody that I've watched interviewed, we've talked to you four gentlemen. You guys are very well spoken. It's very well done, and you guys are the players. So if it isn't for you guys, they wouldn't have a show.
Right on.
Yeah, and it was really cool. The last 3 days of that event, I got to sit in the boat and see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. As I sat in there with Kyle, I got to watch all the drone footage get shot and the amount of thought that goes into, well, what if we do this? How about this? I mean, those guys are always on their game and looking for that next angle. It was pretty cool. There's a lot more going on there than anybody ever gets to see until you're sitting, in that boat on the water, watching it all unfold. It was pretty cool. I've never been part of anything like it in my years. So.
Yeah, that's the one thing when we talk to Andy Cleveland, my background's in television. I've been working in it 32 years, so I understand what it takes to do something of that caliber. With you sitting in the boat and being able to see that behind the scenes for the first time really in depth, how did that change your perspective on things?
It changes your perspective on how tough it is, the amount of work they're going through to make that all happen. It's not like turn your camera phone on and your video and just go. There's so much more to it. It's calculated. You're always thinking about the next move. Who do we go cover next? The amount of thought and effort that's going into that. There's so many people behind the scenes making that happen. Even on shore, on site, that have nothing to do with the production studio. There's half a dozen people at that championship that are just making everything look easy. Mm-hmm. And it's not easy for those guys, especially, when we're on a tougher bite. They need to capture every moment of that to make, basically good TV. And they just did an amazing job making all of us look good, making us sound good. We're a bunch of fishing hacks for the most part. And, that's what we're there for, is to fish.
Right.
And they did a great job this year for year one. I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Well, and there's another part of this whole thing that we haven't really talked about is the officials that are in the boats.
Yes.
Explain a little bit about, interacting with them. I mean, I can't imagine you trying to fish with a camera guy, number one, and dancing around, but also having another person in the boat, watching you fish and checking the weights and making sure that some people don't say things they shouldn't while they're on camera. But
it happened.
Yeah.
I'm
and things like that.
Away.
But their job is tough too.
Yes, it is. And I'm blown away that I received basically zero profanity penalties this year.
Joe,
other
not so
than
much.
One I gave myself. I mean, I get a bad case of trucker's mouth. I'm not going to lie. And I was able to switch that off pretty well when I did have a camera in my boat. Proud of myself for that. Joe, on the other hand, Mr. Nice Guy, he shined the other way.
Right.
And, which we all get a chuckle out of because he's got that big beaming smile, and he just, and that's just who we are. We're showing our true side, and we have to do that for good viewership.
Well, is it true that he's going to be sponsored by Dial Soap next year?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. They'd be fools if they didn't do it, because he's definitely going to get them some coverage for sure.
Well, that's it, right? But the problem is he gets the penalties. He's catching the fish, so go figure. But,
yeah, even with all those penalties, he still, I think, had the most scoreable fish all year. We have a big banquet coming up in the off season here that'll be really fun. They're going to hand out some awards. I can't wait to see what they do. Yeah, I get many comments about Pool 2 when I went into that discharge and I was bouncing off the walls and etc. And then I pulled myself back out of there and I turned right back around and I went in and everybody's like, he's not going back in. And I'm like, hang on, we're going back in. But that's what, people need to see, what we're going to catch the fish or, try to beat the other guy. So, it's somewhat reality TV. Obviously we can't show it all, right? Like that wouldn't be good, but for the most part, it played out pretty well.
Right. You know what? In the way you say that, it was kind of funny because there were some moments throughout the entire year that were, not going to lie, made for TV moments in fishing. This past week when Mary Ann, and I forget who he was fishing, she was fishing against.
Max.
Max. They were like, I don't know, 20 feet away from each other and just talking away and trying to fish and could care less. But it was awesome. And you were out there too. You were following them around and commentating on it. And I tell you what, you can't beat that.
No, and I mean those are the stories of what actually happens out there. Tournaments beforehand, before this came about, you don't get that instant interaction. You don't get the whole story. Obviously you don't get the whole story either. You don't get to capture it all, but boy, they do a good job of capturing it for the most part. It's a lot of pressure having a camera in the boat for that amount of time. Everything you do is live. It's public. You're under scrutiny, right? Like people can go back and replay and look at it and all of that. And, then you get the keyboard warriors of sorts that are commenting and putting their plugs in. But for the most part, the officials and the marshals, kudos. I've been fishing with co-anglers for many years throughout this run, and those guys sit there and watch and watch and watch. They're not casting. They're not doing anything like a co-angler would in a pro-am tournament. They're watching, they're focused, they're seeing everything we do. And when you hook up and you get a fish on, they're right there as soon as you land that fish. They're standing there with the scale ready to score that fish for you. And that's a lot to ask of somebody. I don't know that I could do it, sit there and watch somebody fish and not want to pick up a rod and be part of it, right? I mean, that would kill me. So kudos to all of them. I had nothing but great with all of them that I had this year. And they know your focus. They know what's going on. They generally stay quiet. Once in a while, want to throw some words of encouragement in there, keep you focused and all that. But for the most part, all of those guys, even down to Doug Oler that you said was watching, those guys were amazing.
Well, absolutely. And he's also thrown something out at you that he's planning on being a thorn in your side next year.
I know he is. Just tell him I'm going to slap him in the stomach like Joe did. And, but I'll control my profanity so I don't have to take 5 minutes against him.
I was going to say that cost Joe some time.
So I tell you what, we're going to come up on our next break. When we come back, we're going to revisit a moment in time on that Tuesday night in the after show.
All right, we're going to step outside. We'll be right back after this.
I know what this is all about.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam System, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Third segment of the show, everybody. We're still sitting here talking about the tournament, the championship there in New York. And you alluded to something before we went to break there, that something happened in the post the show after the
one of the
tournament that day.
One of the themes going on last week was, besides the angle of the year was taken care of, it was just basically you guys were going to all fish against each other and see where it all worked out by Friday, right? It started on Monday. And what became apparent was there was a lot of side betting going on. And when you got paired up, you were going to be having a side bet. And Brett King and Joe Okada had a side bet going.
Well, Joe alluded to that when we talked to him about 3 weeks ago. He said that you and him were going to have a little side bet going on.
Yeah.
So how did that all play out? What was the side bet?
Oh, man. I mean, we had all kinds of suggestions. And one of the best ones, of course, Joe and I didn't get to fish on Monday. Right. So we literally sat around in the cabin together while Robert went out and fished. And so we're bantering back and forth as we're both getting ready to go for Tuesday. And I'm like, all right, how about this side bet? I said, I tell you what, I said, I win, you eat 3 pickles. I said, you win, I eat whatever you want. He's like, absolutely not. He's like, I'll shave my eyebrows first.
Before he eats a pickle?
Before he eats a pickle. Joe has a huge phobia of pickles. It's not happening in his world. Head to Head wanted us to do a shave the eyebrows thing. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. If I beat Joe and I shave his eyebrows and he's got to go home to poor Abigail, he's going to scare the bejeebers out of her because he doesn't have any eyebrows. And I just said, could you imagine that big beaming smile of his going up to a big bald forehead with no eyebrows? I said, I can't do that. So I tried to get him to bite on the pickles thing. That wasn't happening. We talked about some kind of dinner arrangement, and then we landed on, all right, the winner gets to, write their name on the loser's forehead on the live after show. So that's what we landed on. And I honestly didn't know if Joe would go through with it, just because he's the nice guy. And but he did. He followed through, and he come up and he stamped it and put Joe and a big smiley face on there. And yeah, it was pretty good.
We're watching the video right now of that after show, and he's sneaking up behind you. And not only did he pull a Sharpie out, it happened to be a red Sharpie of all things.
Yes, of all things.
It's funny because in the video he comes totally out of the back, and he just kind of has that smile of something's up.
And then the next night, I kind of paid him back. I snuck up on him as he was talking, and I had a Sharpie in my hand, like I was going to write my name on his forehead while he was doing his interview. And of course, I just put his hat back on and walked away because he didn't deserve that. He won fair and square. He buried me. So
that's good stuff. And stuff like that. That's just good natured humor. And when you guys do stuff like that live, I think it plays so well to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have. I mean, there was many years of tournament fishing where it was all business for me. Never, just like kind of let it go. And I just decided, at a point in time, like if I can't have any fun doing this, I'm not going to do it anymore. It's turning into a job.
Right.
I already had a job. I didn't need another one. So that's when you kind of have to back off and just, have some fun with it and enjoy what you're doing. I mean, we're so fortunate to do what we do and have, companies, great companies like Yamaha supporting us to do what we want to do. We're the luckiest guys in the world, as far as I'm concerned, in the fishing industry. And if you can't stop and enjoy some of that, you might want to check yourself at the door, because there's a lot of people that want to do, what we do.
Absolutely.
And they never get the opportunity. So I am so grateful every day that I get to continue on and do what I do. You got to crack some smiles in there somewhere, and you're going to get beat. There's more downs in this game than there is ups, and there always will be. There's not always the Joe Okadas and the Isaac Lakiches of the world that make this season look so easy. Right? They're going to have an off year, and that's when you have to be able to smile, nod, continue on, and remember how lucky you are to carry these torches for these companies.
Absolutely. And that says a lot too, the fact that, Yamaha supporting, there's you four that run together, such good friendships. We also run with Yamaha, and the support they give you guys as well. And only one person week to week can win. That's just a given.
Yep. And, we all embrace it, and, good for you. Glad you got it. You go about it with the attitude, it's my turn next. That's how you have to approach it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we got a question, actually a question and a comment. One, Jeff Baller says he'd pay to learn 1/1000th of what Brett has forgot. He says you are a wealth of knowledge and an awesome person.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. And I've forgotten a lot. I'm not getting any younger, I'll say that. So there's some stuff in the background, in the trash bin that definitely could benefit some people. But no, I appreciate those comments, and I do enjoy, spreading the knowledge. I'm so fortunate, looking forward to fall fishing coming up. I don't put my boat away after tournament season. I live on the Mississippi River. This thing's just starting to fire up if we ever get some more cold weather. I'll spend another 30 to 50 days on the water probably yet. It's not just about tournaments and competition for me. I just truly enjoy trying to catch every walleye or sauger that swims.
We just got a comment. Just came in from Mr. Andy Cleveland himself. He says, He says, what's your name?
Tony! I miss you, Tony.
Right?
Oh.
There's a background story on that in the video, but we won't go there. That one will surface at the awards banquet, I'm sure. So
yeah, we got a little insight to that.
A great year. I appreciate all your hard work and efforts, and that was a fun night that you're referencing to.
It was, and we were having Andy on a few months back, and I got a phone call from Josh out of the blue, and I'm like, I'm going to get some dirt on it. He goes, yeah. I said, we're interviewing Andy tonight. He goes, I know. I'm like, oh, well, tell me. Do tell. So one of the questions was, what is your personal best walleye?
I would put it, I've probably got two that rival each other, out of Green Bay and one out of Lake Erie, right at about 13 pounds. My goal before I'm done is to try to break the 15-pound mark here out of the Mississippi River. They swim here. It's not super frequent, but on the right year, it's nothing to catch one over 12 pounds. But I would say right at about 13 pounds is probably the biggest one I've ever caught. I have nothing on the wall, just to be perfectly honest. I'm not really about that. I just want to catch them. And but no, one day pre-fishing for the Sturgeon Bay Open up in Sturgeon Bay, we saw some walleyes swimming one afternoon, and I told my son Lucas, I'm like, we're going to come back here at the end of the day, last 20 minutes of daylight, and I said, I'm going to catch one of them, because he caught one the year before that was just shy of 13 pounds, and I went back-to-back casts and caught two just behemoths. Didn't scale them, don't have to. It's not about that for me, but they were both 30-plus inches. and that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. You know, you hear about those. I know around here we've got the Detroit River that can produce some big ones, or up in the Bay where you guys are going to be next year. But you know, kudos to you. You know, you said you don't have anything on your wall, which is kind of interesting to me. It shows you that it's about you and the fish.
I have a 42-inch pike, northern pike, that I caught when I was like 14 years old. That's the only fish, I've mounted. I have a couple perch from a trip to South Dakota last winter in my freezer yet to get mounted. But as far as the fish of choice for me to chase in a walleye, if I ever tap that 15-pound mark, I might have a decision to make. But, today's replicas are so good. I might just have to go that way and just let it swim for somebody else to enjoy.
Well, take a couple pictures of it, let it go, and they can the replicas. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's how it works. And then, the fish lives for another day to be caught by somebody else.
I'm doing something totally out of the box for me here coming up in December. I'm actually going on a trip to Guatemala. With Robert Blosser and Kurt Bassinaire and their wives and Robert's daughter, and we're going to go down there and we're going to chase some fish around in the Gulf and the ocean. And I've never done anything like that. I'm super jacked to go do that. They had such a blast last year. I think they raised 32 or 60 some sales or something crazy, and they had an open spot this year, and Blosser didn't even give me a choice. He's like, dude, you got to go. You have to experience this. So,
he twisted your arm, right?
Yeah, hard.
Yeah, that's awesome. That does sound like a good trip.
So, with that being said, that's in December?
Yes.
Oh, cool. We'll have Robert on just before they probably go then.
Yeah, we're going like December 10th, I think, is when we're heading out there.
Perfect. He's going to be on the 2nd, so
it'll be the week before.
Week before, so we'll get all the good stuff before you guys leave.
Good, yep.
Right? And so, you know, it's one of those things. And Jeff Baller says, cooked 5 racks of ribs for the group. Sorry you missed out, Brett.
I did miss out too. Yeah, I absolutely did. He did. I believe, if I remember the story right, Jeff cooked those and took them down to like the Country Inn and Suites in Cottage Grove and fed the crew that was staying there. So that was pretty cool.
And you went in, and that's awesome. You missed out on ribs though, man.
I did.
Sounds like y'all eat pretty good on these trips.
You know what? We run into a lot of hospitality and a lot of good people that welcome us in and take care of us, and it's pretty special, honestly.
That's awesome. I tell you what, we're bumping up here on our last break. We come back. You had mentioned that going in later on into the season, but here in Michigan, people typically put their boats away when it gets to this time of year. We want to pick your brain a little bit, just about maybe a little bit of getting their boat ready to put up for the winter and see what you got for a tip.
Perfect.
All right, we're going to step outside. We'll take our last break, and we'll be right back after this.
Acceleration is part of PSE's DNA. PSE pioneered the speed movement. Now they've developed the vapor category to help you find the most powerful bows on the market to fit you.
High speed equates to intense power and building the momentum you need to be successful. Are you a vapor shooter? Find out at psearchery.com.
Last segment, folks. Man, this hour's flown by.
It has flown by, and we've kind of captured everything that's gone with Brett for the year. He's had a great year of fishing. He did good as a championship. Probably wanted to do a little bit better than just one day. And
of course,
right? Like you said, the weather's played a lot into what. Each place you've gone to has been a little bit odd. As it's never been, I've heard, perfect. But, we're in October, and we're going to be shortly into November and December and wonderful January. But typically, people are putting their boats away. A lot of them put their boats away and go hunting. Some keep them out as long as they can. And like you're going to be out even longer because you're on the Mississippi as well. But for those who, I want to put the boat up. What's kind of a tip, that you would give off the top of your head that, hey, first thing you need to do is this?
Well, one of the big taglines for Yamaha is maintenance matters, and it really does for the longevity of your investment. I don't call it a purchase anymore. I call it an investment because the dollar figures are getting up there to where the point that you need to take care of your stuff. Some of the things to keep in mind late in the year like this is in the fall. You got to drain your lower unit. You might have had some water permeate. You might have got some line in your prop that opened up a seal, and you got water now in your gear case, and that water is going to freeze. So it's a really big thing to change your gear lube as you go into fall before it freezes. When you go fishing in the cold, there's a lot of days I fish, sub-freezing weather. Get out of the water, tip your motor down, drain it, get that water out of the cavities. I'll even dry fire it for a split second and get that water out of there. If you're going to tuck your boat away for the winter, there's some things you need to do with the fuel. Treat the fuel, make sure your tank is full. It's a lot less likely to get moisture in that tank if it's full. These are just simple things that you do to take care of your motors and your equipment. The other big one is those of us with bunk trailers that are used to backing down a ramp, unhooking everything before we back down and then just floating the boat off into the water. You cannot do that in the cold because you might have been out a week ago. Your bunks might be wet. Now they're frozen. You start backing down. It's an icicle. I've seen way too many boats laying on the concrete here for that kind of stuff.
Never even thought about that. That's a good point.
It's all about keeping water out. I mean, just think about it. Water freezes. Do not use your live wells. Ice them down. Not that you need to in that kind of weather, but,
right.
Just try to keep water out of everything. Run your pumps when you get out of the water. Run your bilge, your aerators, all that, your recirc pumps to pump any water that's out of them so you're not cracking casings. But the big one is fresh oil. Change your gear case oil. Change your engine oil in the fall. You're going to do a lot of idling. If you fish all winter like I do, change it again in the spring. That's the biggest thing you can do to keep the longevity of your engines and your boat.
Well, there you go. Great points. Absolutely. But, wow, man, I never would have thought about backing a boat down and unhooking it before you back it down and it being froze.
Every year.
And all of a sudden, it's like go sliding off like an ice skate. It's just, wow.
We'll get people that'll travel up here, from Iowa, wherever, Illinois, and come up for the day. They'll go fishing, load their boat up. They'll go back to their hotel room, do their deal. It's 20 degrees come morning time. They get to the ramp, do their normal summer routine, unhook their boat like they always would. And their bunks sat out in freezing weather all night. I use a product called Gatorback, and it's not carpet, so I don't have to worry about that so much, but I'll still take the safeguard and stay hooked up until I'm to the water. I mean, it's a big one. The other big thing I'll heed warning on is whatever ramp you're using, do yourself a favor and everybody else that's using it, drain your trailer before you pull out, because it's such a huge thing. You do not pull all that water out onto the ramp because it will be frozen by the time you get back if it's 30 degrees or less. So you might get in, but if everybody doesn't take care, you might not get back out without major issues. So
I tell you what, those are some good points and tips for anybody out there. Any kind of engine that you're going to winterize, it's basically get rid of the water.
Yes, and don't get your hands wet. That's not good.
Yeah, don't do that either, right? And speaking of Yamaha motors, watching some of this action, you needed to, if you were going to pick up and move, you needed a good response out of your motor. And how did your motor do overall for the entire H2H season?
You know what? I've not had an issue with a Yamaha engine yet that has left me stranded. That is one thing I never ever worry about. I ran a bass boat with a year with an SHO on it. I run the offshores. I run the kickers. That thought never even enters my mind. That could be a factor in it. I worry more about battery voltage and things like that than I ever do about that engine actually firing up and getting me home. Anybody that knows us and our crew knows that we've made some pretty hellacious runs over the years, and it's just one of the things you don't worry about. You never worry about hitting that key and not getting home. It just never enters my mind. So, the dependability, the reliability of the product, it's just peace of mind and allows us to just go. We never have to worry about it.
And that goes from your big motor that you got when you want to go for a long distance, or when you decide you need to change up tactics, and you look at your kicker motor and you need that to work right away.
Absolutely. And the same goes there. If you're using that in the cold, you do the same. It's the same routine. But yes, I never worry about my kicker starting and doing any of that deal. I'll warm it up in the morning if I know I'm going to use it. I never, ever worry about that thing not starting when I hit the button. And I've just never had those issues. I mean, things can happen, obviously. They're human built. They're mechanical. But, man, they sure have it dialed.
They do, and we've talked, at length with others and yourself about the engineers over at Yamaha coming out to see you guys and talk with you guys and go over what could be, what needs to be, what we need to do. That just speaks volumes of the engineers on that side of the, Yamaha.
Yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff coming that obviously I'm not allowed to talk about, but I'm privy to. COVID, the whole COVID nightmare. I'm in the marine industry. I work for a boat company, Yarcraft Boats, Bascat Boats, so I live this every single day. But COVID has slowed a lot of innovation down and things to come. But I've been privy to some pretty cool products coming from Yamaha themselves that I'm pretty excited to see.
Awesome.
Is that some stuff you think we might get to see here in 2022?
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
All right. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
He's saying.
That's what he said.
Stay tuned.
So with that being said, looking back at your year of head-to-head fishing, what was your favorite technique on that throughout the year that you enjoyed doing the most of the year?
My favorite technique, period, is jigs and plastics. I'm actually very disappointed, in myself and my approach on some of these events this year, that I just didn't get that going on when I should have. There was a couple of those bites that dominated that I should have been all over, and I just seemed to kind of lose focus on that for whatever reason. I used blade baits this year more than I ever have, which was great. I have more confidence in those than I ever have had. So I hope to carry that momentum forward. I would have to say, as far as overall, that was probably my biggest learning curve, and my favorite moment of the year is just gaining more confidence in blade baits because they work so many places, whether it's vertical casting, heavy, light. I gained a lot more confidence in that technique this year than I have ever. McConaughey, that was deep spoons, deep jig and wraps, which I always like to do. But I'm always trying to go back to the plastics because I just feel like when I get fish to eat a jig and plastic, I got them, right? Like I'm hooked up. I'm going to get them in the boat. And that's just the way I've always operated. And I definitely need to gravitate more to that next year with certainty, when we cannot use live bait in this circuit. So
you just use what did Joe use in the boat? Leeches?
Yeah.
All right.
If I said what Joe was doing in the boat, he would be on the phone before this camera shut off. So
Right? No, I get it. And that's one of the things, watching this whole entire series and watching the different bodies of water, what was your favorite body out of the whole entire tournament?
Mille Lacs obviously was a blast. That was kind of a free-for-all for our crew and all that. But Pool 2 was pretty fun for me. It was a grueling bite. It's right up the road from me. I have not spent a ton of time up there, and I actually went into, a feeder body of water and put a bite together that I knew nothing about until I found it. Things like that is very rewarding to me, to go in and, it's nothing somebody told me about prior to whatever. Obviously I didn't catch enough, but it's just things like that intrigue me. You guys watch me go into a discharge. I never caught a fish in there in practice when I went in there. And it was set up completely different in practice when I went in there, just to be perfectly honest. I was able to anchor up and fish it. I caught 4 catfish, but just knowing fish live where they live, it was a cool spot that intrigued me, that once I knew I was going to make the grade 8, I went to explore more and see if I could put something together to fall back on. It didn't work out. I pulled in there and kind of got my tail kicked in because the current was completely different, and I put on quite the circus show, obviously. But it's just things like that keep me ticking. So that was probably my favorite event of the year, honestly.
That's awesome. And next year you're going to have six different areas. You're traveling around to go try some new things and work on that. And like you said, you're going to continue working on your fishing for the entire year. Now, not going to lie, Guatemala might not count for walleye, but when you're bringing in those sailfish, that's going to be wild.
It's going to be intense. We got invited along last year, and we elected not to go because I get pretty busy, boat show season after that, and it just didn't work out. And man, they started sending the pictures back from when they were there, and I was just like, oh my God, why didn't I not do this?
Well, you're going to change it this year, and you're going to have a great time. And we're actually going to look forward to the pictures. You're going to be posting hopefully some pictures, you and Robert and everybody else that went. So should be fun to watch what you guys bring up from Guatemala.
Yep. No, I'm looking forward to the off season. Like I said, I got a lot of fishing yet ahead of me. Obviously a little more relaxed, but the big saugers are pushing up here in the river, and that's just one thing I love to chase in the fall because that's all plastics, and there will be no live bait in my boat. There hasn't really been all summer, but there definitely won't be this fall. So I couldn't be more jacked. Can't wait till that cool breeze is smacking me in the face in the morning when I'm hooking onto the boat and going out there and putting a beat down on them.
I have a feeling it's not going to be long before that cool breeze hits us all in the face and reminds us that snow is not too far behind.
No, it's not. I mean, we've had such an extended summer. I have a feeling the door's going to open, then it's going to slam right behind it, and we're going to be right in the heartbeat of winter. Yeah. So
we always pay for
that's
it one
not
way
the way
or the
we all
other.
choose it to be, but that's how it's going to be, it seems like.
It always evens out somewhere down the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a great hour. We'll wrap up the show here. Just hang on when we get done here, and we'll chat for just a second. But for everybody that's watching right now or listening to the podcast, make sure you go over to Brett's social media pages, give him a like, follow, share, and do the same for us as well. Share the show. It helps the people who support us and support him as well. So, and if you're listening to the show over on iTunes, make sure you go over and give us a review over there as well. So next week, Danny, who do we have coming on the show?
Next week, we got Chris Kreiner.
Okay. We're talking about suppressors.
About shooting some coyotes.
There you go. So make sure you tune in. Next week we'll be back on normal time, which will be Thursday night at 7:30, correct?
Yep.
Okay. I got to get the dates because hunting season's starting to creep in, and things are going to ebb and flow just a little bit here for the deer.
And
so.
you stay tuned, folks, for that.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us this week. And Brett, once again, thanks, buddy, for joining us. We had a blast talking to you.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Look forward to our next chat on this stuff, and you guys winter well if I don't talk to you soon. And if nothing else, we're going to see you when we're at Saginaw Bay.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Dinner and all that good stuff. So
We'll put a plan together, for sure.
All right, hang on, and then we'll talk to you after we cut the live feed.
All right. That'll do it for us this week, folks. We'll see you again next week. This episode was brought to you by
PSE Archery, Yamaha Outboards, Better the Hunt, Easy Cut, Packer Max, Deer Camp Coffee, Buck Baits, JPO Game Calls, Limwalker Game Calls, Wild Seasoning, Total Peep, Sunrise Archery, Scent Lock, and Scent Blocker.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe. Until next week on the Up North Journal.